Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. Hopefully we're with you. We're loud, we're clear. My audio just did a funny cutting out thing there, but I'm here now. Hopefully you are too. Give us a hello in the old chat if you're with us. I think we're all good to go. It says we're live. I'm assuming that we're live. Yeah, just me at the moment. Chewy's on his way here. He's probably been caught up walking the dog, would be my guess. But here we are. Here we're doing it. And we are looking to say hello to everyone in the chat. So nice to have you all with us. Michael, kia ora koutou. Kia ora from JK. Hi from Gareth. Hi from Vicky. Pursuit says, you know what to do. Hit that like. We got a Mark says, finally a greens ad instead of an act one. Yeah, people have been telling us that. Obviously, we have no control over the advertising that comes in before the show starts, but there has been adverts popping up. Hello, Spiderhoof. Hello. Oh, sorry, I didn't say your name, Steph. Hello, Steph. Hello, Rob. Hello, Freesoul. You're all in there. Good to see you all. Yeah, Chewy's messaged me 5 minutes ago saying he's only 5 minutes away, so we will be with him momentarily. Lots of stuff to get on to today, like lots of stuff. I basically had the whole show planned by about lunchtime because of what happened over the weekend, especially on Q&A. And then, of course, more news happened in the day, like National having hurty feelings over mean words. I know, so we've got to talk about that. And also Winston Peters, of course, he's basically put his pole in the ground. Is that what you say? I don't want to talk about Winston Peters' pole. It feels a bit weird. But it is, he has put it in the ground and he has said, I'm just going to overtly go for the anti-vaxxer vote. That's what I'm going to go for. So tonight, as we go through the night, I definitely want to show you how it is. And now I know you know this, but how it is unequivocal when people are saying, because what's going around at the moment is, sorry, I'm going to take this off. Down out. It's a bit warm in my studio. There's a new video going around with Christopher Luxon talking about no one had a compulsory vaccine. And I'm just going to show you the easiest and simplest way to stop that conversation. I've done it. I've recorded a conversation where I've done it, where people have been talking about no choice. I ask one question and then they go, oh yeah, well, it is a choice. And I'm going to do that for you tonight, just to give you that information as well. Yep, Free Soul, the Herald front page. Haha, exactly. I don't have that image, but you've all seen it. But that's the hurty words type thing. Before we get going, I want to say a huge thanks to all the people who have been involved so far in our March merch. Well, not March, I'm saying our merch drop for September. I put in, well, we did a few kind of giveaways and stuff as well, but in total, we put in 30 t-shirts last week. And that's huge. I mean, like, we're a little tiny pissant show at the bottom of the South Island, and we put in 30 orders last week. Most people getting BHN gear here down the bottom, but lots of you also getting, if the left votes, the left wins, including Bomber. We offered to give Bomber a top, and he went and bought one off us, which was lovely. He didn't need to do that. And so we're sending Bomber up some stuff as well. Wanted to give you guys who have purchased stuff a heads up. Spoke to the printer today. The shirts turned up this morning. They're printing them today. They'll be available tomorrow. I'll be sending them out straight away. What I'm going to do is, just because it does take me a lot of time to do it, I'll probably have to send some out on tomorrow night, which will get picked up Wednesday morning, and then some out on Wednesday that it'll pick up Thursday morning. Now, what I'm going to do, without fear or favor, is send out the ones that are branded for the election first, just because you'll want those quicker to wear them more quickly. So what I'll probably do, what I'll aim to do tomorrow, Tuesday, once I go and pick them up at 5 p.m., is package up all the ones, if you bought it, if the left votes, the left wins top of any size, shape, color, those will be getting set out, hopefully, fingers crossed, Wednesday morning, and the other ones Thursday morning. So they'll be in the post, as I've said, as I promised, this week, if you got on board last week. Now, we are running this for 2 more weeks, and there'll be another order this Friday being sent out, this time next week. So if you're interested in getting a hoodie, a BHN hoodie, a BHN t-shirt, black or white. They're coming in with a little OB in the corner. The OB means original beardy, which simply means you got BHN gear in sort of the first runs. So basically that OB will be on the shirts for 2023 and then never again. It just means, in 2030, when we're the #1 watched news source in the country, you'll be able to go, hey, look, I've been with them since day one. So you can get an original beardy, an OB hoodie or t-shirt now. Or, of course, the drop for this month is if the left votes the left wins, and green hoodies, red hoodies, green t-shirts, red t-shirts as well. If you use the promo code during the show, the promo code is, I'm trying to remember it, it's scrolling across the bottom there. Oh, it's Pat in the Hat. Pat in the Hat, kind of like Cat in the Hat, but Pat in the Hat. That's the promo code for tonight. That promo code is only active until 10:30 p.m. tonight. You have to be watching live to get it, and that gives you free delivery, which just saves you another $5. So for a t-shirt, it saves you 10%, basically, and for a hoodie, it saves you, 6%, something like that, 7%, somewhere around that. So if you're interested, get involved, get yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie before the end of the show, and you can get free delivery by using the promo code Pat in the Hat. I can see Chewy there in the waiting room now. Am I going to bring you in, Chewy? Are you just waiting there, going to bring yourself in, or what's the deal? You're just lurking. You're just going to watch for a while from the background.
I didn't want to ruin your pitch.
How are you, man? Welcome.
Good. Sorry, I'm late.
No, it's all good. I'm speaking very quickly because I planned the show today by lunchtime.
Oh, I'm here to ruin it.
And then a whole bunch more stuff came up. So this is going to possibly one of our 2.5 hour long shows. I'm joking. I'm not, but I might be.
240-minute show.
And because there's one other thing I wanted to show you, there's something that's completely irrelevant to us having to watch, because it's not news at all. But I came across it today and I was like, holy shit, we have to look at this. So I've got one of those stories as well, which we'll probably do first. In fact, well, before we do that, see, this is it. I want to talk about everything. You and I had an interesting weekend on Twitter again. The United Kingdom crowd got involved in one of our tweets. For those of you who are with us,
dumbest positions.
Well, for those of you who were with us last week, we had a conversation with Simon Wilson where we talked about the nature of protest, right? Yeah. And what we asked, actually, we didn't talk about the Posey Parker protest at all, but what we asked is, if we support the Posey Parker protesters to shout down Posey Parker, what do we do when people are shouting down political figures? So that was our only connection with the Posey Parker situation. It actually wasn't about her. It wasn't about what she was talking about. It wasn't about the content. It was about the nature of protest. But of course, she retweeted it. Fuck knows how she got it. And then 20,000 views later, Chewy, got 20,000 views. We've got a whole bunch of people telling us we're misogynists and, we're supporting this. And it was just hilarious. And I'll say one other thing. You may not have seen this, Chewy. It happened again today, not from the UK, but from New Zealand, where I put another one of those clips up from Simon, and it was talking about that as well. How do we treat protesters in different cases? Some lovely, well-meaning, far-left lunatic got on straight away and told us we were, would they say we were both sidesing it, or it was terrible, or it wasn't comparable? And the only problem is the person who got on board after about 5 or 6 minutes of me posting it, and the clip was 7 minutes. So there's absolutely no mathematical way they could have watched the clip. They just saw the headline and decided that they'd jump on board and go, you guys are terrible because you're both siding this thing, which it wasn't, again, what it was about at all. It was about the nature of protest. Do you want to say anything about that, Chewy? Because it was an interesting, you know me, I don't typically feed the trolls. My favorite tweet over the weekend.
Chum going, fucking have at it,
I sent one tweet out over the weekend, which was something like, to those entitled people who feel they are, they deserve a response just because they tweet at you. You do not. Full stop. That got quite a lot of retweets, and it's not because we're arrogant. It's like you can say whatever you want on Twitter. You can come on my timeline. It's fine. You can share my stuff and credit. It doesn't mean we have to respond to you. I don't typically feed the trolls. Sometimes I do a little bit here and there, but I don't typically. My troll feeder lives about 7 k's away from me in that direction with a ginger beard, and he likes to wear beanies. He feeds the trolls. Would you like to share anything before we get into the night?
I'm on the back of the boat, basically going, chum the waters. But look, it's very clear, like, people are sharing our clips, and that's awesome, and it's always going to rile people up, and that's fine. But come correct, guys.
Yeah.
With your thinking caps on. There are some really dumb positions, and a lot of the time they show their whole ass when they either heavily project what we're about.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because they're so far off basis.
Yeah.
We're Labour shills.
And so you like, so you're supporting, old women being punched in the face. What?
No, we did whole shows about how that was not good. What's your point?
Yeah.
Are you saying that everybody that supports Posey Parker is a Nazi? No, but here's several photos of actual Nazis supporting Posey Parker.
Oh my God, there was a beautiful one. That person who said to me, I know you saw this because you were. They said to me something like, "Well, the only reason they're turning up is because the other position is so much worse." And so I went, "Okay, so what you're saying is, Nazis are okay to share our ideology because the other ideology is better. So we're happy for the Nazis to be there sharing our ideology." And I just said something like, "Okay, you do you, boo," and that was the end of it. Yeah, that was the end of it.
Yeah, I was like, "Cool, that's it." But there's nothing to discuss. We're out. You're okay with Nazis? That's my red line.
Because the other side's worse.
But yeah, some of the discussion we had over the weekend in your Twitter feed was just like, we're Labour shills. Which is hilarious.
I wish Labour, you can send us some money. We're trying to look at a fund the fucking thing.
Yeah, we're paid for, which is again news to my bank account. Yeah, and what was it? I says, oh look, we've been critical of Labour a lot this year because
actually more direct.
We don't think that they're doing. We don't think they're doing enough. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll prove it. And I was like, we've been doing this show for like coming up on 2 years.
Yep.
There are hundreds of thousands of tweets. There are thousands of hours of show. I tell you what, man, I'm enjoying my weekend. You go and look. I don't care.
All right. I'm actually not going to start with that clip I've just talked so much about, which has nothing to do with news. I'll save it. If we get time at the end, I'll show it, or I'll bring it back tomorrow because it's literally it's not newsworthy at all. It's about AI. So we'll come back to it and see what happens. Let's start with I'm just making sure I've got so many freaking clips up here. Oh look, I haven't actually even tested my sound yet, bro, because you weren't here at the start. Ridiculous. Maybe we should. What is this? Gosh, I've got so much up here. That one. Got it. Let me just tell me straight away if you can't hear this because we haven't tested this yet. So this is the hurty feelings, national naughty bad people. And remember, as a reminder, Matthew Hooton said this is what Labour should do. They should go harder. They should go after them. And we both said it's a sad indictment that would probably work. I don't really feel the need to go like that, but it would probably work. Obviously, something's happened, and they've decided we're going to go hard nuts. And I don't know if it says it in this clip. I haven't actually watched this clip yet because I've been prepping other things. But to his credit, I did hear through the weekend Christopher Luxon talking about this, and he said they've been attacking us personally for 2 years. They've been coming after us for 2 years and we haven't responded. And the reason they haven't responded, and I remember when we talked to the then mayor of Dunedin about this, Aaron Hawkins, is that he can't go off half-cocked when he's mayor because he actually has a responsibility to put things in place. So as the Prime Minister and as the government, you actually can't go off half-cocked on a whole bunch of things, whereas the opposition parties can because they have no accountability. But now it's election season. And they are the government, but they're not the government anymore. And so they can do and say what they want. And that's the change in tone. They haven't had to go, I'd like to respond to that, but actually my relationship with country X means if I do, it might create and I'm the Prime Minister, so I better just leave it alone. That's basically been what's happening till now. But now all those shackles are being taken off. Now, does it mean we want to see them go nasty? I don't know. I think that's the way it's going to be. But that's why. It's not because, look at the polls. It's because up until a few days ago, they had the weight of responsibility of governing the country. So any comments they make could literally make an international situation. Opposition party doesn't. And so now they're going, now we're going to try and win this thing. That's what it's about. So do you want to just add to that or should we just rip into this?
Yeah, look, I want to put a little bit of context on this. My preferred option, as much as I enjoyed the CTU going hard on Luxon in the past week, is my preference would be that there would be no lobby groups doing it. Like, if we got the money out of politics, that is my position. But it is rich of National to go, we don't like the meanness that's
Hooty.
in the advertising, when they've got the taxpayer union attack dog running constantly, they've got no ground to stand on this.
Yeah.
None.
And
They don't
that's
have
going to
high
come up.
ground, low ground, no ground.
That's going to come up in this conversation. So let's get to the first part of this conversation. This is from News Hub, I think tonight, about, these attack ads. And yes, I mean, Spider Hoof just said it was the CTU that did this. We agree, but the accusations are Labor's working with the CTU, and the accusation is still this is going to be dirty. So we'll draw those together in a bit.
Stopping in for a pick.
You can hear it?
And spying the put down.
Sure.
Christopher Luxon
can hear?
under attack on the front page, on billboards, on screens.
Christopher Luxon, out of touch, too much risk.
The Council of Trade Unions launching a multimedia missile at Nationals leader.
Luxon isn't the right leader in a cost of living crisis.
I just think it's incredibly sad and pathetic to
Sad and pathetic. Is that because it's wrong, or because it's right, or something else? That's the question.
Hurt my spare wings.
I did read a write-up as I was coming in that basically said, for all the people who are talking about, mean or not mean, make sure you don't forget accurate or not accurate. That's something to remember as well.
to be honest.
His campaign manager calling a special press conference to call it out.
This is a highly orchestrated, highly political, highly choreographed, American-style hatchet job.
American-style hatchet job after they've just done the Rocky Balboa entrances to their conference. You certainly don't want American style. That'd be terrible.
Christopher Luxon. It's disgraceful. They should be ashamed of themselves.
CTU boss Richard Wagstaff says this is not personal.
He calls people bottom feeders.
It's political.
Look, the buck stops with Christopher Luxon. He's leading these policies, and these policies are not good for working people. So we're not going to sit on our hands.
The Nats reckon Labor had a hand in it.
This is going to become the most negative election campaign in New Zealand history.
Oh, that's absolute nonsense.
Hipkins holding up a metaphorical mirror to the right and its own attacks.
Yeah, we've got this in full, this clip.
A pretty nasty, despicable personal attack.
He came with stacks of the stuff.
Yeah. I was particularly touched by this one, actually. This is myself and David Parker on some what would appear to be Russian horses. I actually think I look quite good on a horse.
National never goes personal, though, they say.
It's the Baroccas in the morning.
Our attack ads, if you want to call them that, are going to be highlighting the contrast in the policy-based approach.
But actually, the point here, so and people are saying it in the chat, and they said this wasn't Labor.
No.
It was the CTU. And their accusation should be backed up with evidence. If Labor was orchestrating it, they need evidence. Because at the moment, you could equally argue, and we will show some of this, National orchestrates the Taxpayers Union. It's the same thing. Taxpayers Union does something, CTU does something, and they're whinging about this, but they've never once, and this is what we said last week and over the weekend about Nicola Willis being upset about the CTU speaking before her on breakfast. We've never heard them say, but Jordan Williams, we should make sure he also announces all of his backgrounds. They never do it when they're on their side, and that's why it's pearl clutching hypocrisy, Joey.
Can I just point out that this is especially rich coming from the Bish here, is that his dad runs the Taxpayers Union.
Yeah.
Like,
or maybe did or does. It's either maybe he did.
Oh, he's still involved. I'm sure of it. What's his name? Is it Robin Bishop or something like that? I don't know.
Okay, maybe. Either way, he was involved. Should we keep going? And you ever look up that? We'll keep going.
Yeah.
I think they're being a bit thin-skinned, to be honest.
Everyone acting like they've never seen an attack ad before.
Oh, I don't think we've done personal attack ads. We've attacked people.
This is the guy who warned New Zealand on. Yeah, I didn't bring this clip up, but we've featured this. Warned New Zealand not to trust Rawiri Waititi in front of Rawiri Waititi on the Breakfast Show. He was saying that this person shouldn't be trusted, and he says we've never been personal. We don't do attack ads. He did it on air in an interview about Rawiri right there and then. What's the difference? These guys are doing it in print, and they're not Labor. They're a union.
On their behaviour and policies.
A selective memory, perhaps. Not a month ago, ACT brought up this billboard space. That's a personal attack.
No, that's a behaviour.
Not a peep about that from their pals in the Nats, but now the left is doing it.
Be kind from 6 years ago has become under Chris Hipkins, be nasty.
It's a bit rich from the National Party, given their level of attack advertising almost every day of the year.
We do not want a personal vindictive attack-style campaign.
National clearly finding it uncomfortable when the shoe is on the other foot.
Yeah, and that's fair. Fair from Jenna. The shoe's on the other foot. So this is apparently, I've got this off Twitter. I please in the chat tell me if this is not real. But this is a letter that went out from the Taxpayers Union. Unless it's a piss take, it might be a piss take. You know, I'm happy to be corrected because I've only just got it off Twitter. You know, dear friend, you've probably seen the full scale of attack on Christopher Luxon this morning across print, billboards, and online media by the CTU. We understand an American-style personal TV attack is set to be launched tonight. It feels like a lot of the dirty tactics of 2005. Friend, 6 weeks out from the 2005 election, Don Brash looked set to become Prime Minister, but a similar union-led personal smear campaign, crossed out scare campaign, saw Helen Clark win. Now, I haven't actually researched this, so please tell me if that's actually just someone taking the piss, like it's a mockumentary. But I'll read it out because the thing that ties into lovely. Remember, this is the Taxpayers Union. Let's have a look at that full clip of Chippy talking about some of the things that have been said about him and his colleagues from places like the Taxpayers Union.
I happen to have with me, for example, just a random selection of examples. I particularly enjoyed this one where my photograph has been photoshopped onto a packet of Band-Aids. That was a National Party
from
National.
That
one. There's an attack advertisement here about myself and Jacinda. That, I believe, was a National Party MP produced that one. I thought this was a very flattering photo of Grant Robertson doing some vacuuming. This one was from the Taxpayers Union, a National Party front group.
That's weird.
We have a pretty nasty, despicable personal attack on Nanaya Mahuta. That was, I believe, the Taxpayers Union did that one. This one here, I was particularly touched.
That's kind of weird because that Lisa kind of talked about, you know, from the Taxpayers Union, that we don't want American-style politics. And I mean, there's a couple of American-style politics attack ads from the Taxpayers Union.
Parker on some what would appear to be Russian horses. I actually think I look quite good on a horse, to be frank. This one was from some time ago. They've established what would appear to be another front group in order to do these advertisements, although it appears to link back to the Taxpayers Union, who of course link back to the National Party. I haven't called a media statement, issued a media statement, or called a press conference every time they have done that. If the Christopher Luxon and the National Party are going to do that every time someone critiques or criticises what they're doing, I think they probably need to rethink whether or not they're cut out to be in government.
That is and Pursuit loving the receipts. That is that last call there. And good God. Is maybe that edge he had in that last comment, basically going, are they going to call one every time they get a little bit hurty feelings? Maybe that's why people are looking forward to the debates. Maybe that's a little bit of the edge that he could bring. I don't know, because to be honest, I found him to be quite disappointing and not particularly inspiring, but there was a little something there, Chewy, that you kind of go, where's this going to go?
Now back to my research. Christopher Bishop's dad set up the Taxpayers Union and chaired it for 4 years, and he is still writing articles in their news section, including one yesterday.
Yeah, but he's not hitting it up anymore.
No, but he's still heavily involved. So,
for sure.
And I mean, if we want to talk about American-style political lobby groups, it's a taxpayers' onion.
Yeah,
it's an onion because it's not a union.
So yeah, it's, I don't know. It'll be what I'm intrigued with. And so you and I can't know this. And to be honest, you lovely fuckers watching us probably can't know. I use the term fuckers in the most, loving way. Watching this probably can't do this either, because if you're watching us and you're with us regularly, then you're in the weeds as well. And we're definitely in the weeds. But I wonder how it will play with the public. I wonder if the public will go, oh, get over yourself, Chris Bishop. Or I wonder if they'll go, oh yeah, don't be mean to one another. Like, I wonder how it will play. I have no idea, because I don't live in that world. I live in the, spending all day watching freaking internet political stuff.
Deep in the swamp.
But I wonder how.
I also like Chris's Bishop's. Sorry, I'll put some respect on the name. The Bish, talking about like that sideways hit at Jacinda's "Be Kind." She was talking about the people of New Zealand be kind to each other during COVID.
Yeah. People
Not,
be kind to each other.
We can't be mean in politics.
Or we can't be
What a
accurate.
child.
We can't be accurate in a cutting way. So that's the thing to remember, right? Remember this, if nothing else. Be it mean billboards in politics or kind billboard or politics, the most important thing is accurate billboard in politics. Now, if they're accurate, I would rather have something accurate and mean than inaccurate and friendly. So, you know, let's get accuracy at the top of the list of things we want. And then when we hit that, whether it's mean, kind, in between somewhere, nasty, vindictive, whatever, that can come down the thing, but accurate is the thing we have to start with, Chewy.
And that's why every time I tweet at the Bish, I start my tweets with Bish, please. I think he likes it.
Bish, please. Right, we're moving on because I'm quite looking forward to this one. Anti-vaxxers watching. I know you're there because I know one of your priests,
sickly eyes and your weak lungs.
You're not here with us during the live stream, but one of your priests has probably sent this around. So, kia ora, welcome. Ke te pihakwe? Or are you feeling a bit kind of because you run down? You've caught measles because you're not there. Oh, okay. So let's have a look at this. This is going to begin with everybody's favorite, you know, lurker from the shadows, Winston Peters. Winston Peters promised over the weekend millions in compensation to vax injured and people mandated out of work. I'm not going to go too much into this because the headline kind of does it all, yeah? New Zealand First Leader Winston Penis. Did I just say Winston Penis? I apologize.
You did.
Okay. New Zealand First Leader Penis Peters is promising to spend hundreds of millions of dollars compensating people who lost their jobs due to COVID-19 mandates and those proven to be injured by the vaccine.
What the fuck?
Now, can we please, Bish, at least go, imagine if he was in government and he brought this to the cabinet table. Just imagine. But anyway, the Prime Minister was asked about this in a press conference. One of the things the Prime Minister said, right, very clearly was, well, if someone's injured in a medical misadventure, my words, not his, we already have a process for that. You know, it's called, I don't think he said it's called ACC, but it, sorry, I always get sidetracked by people in the chat. Make a shirt, Winston Penis. It's called ACC. So he was asked about it though, and he responded, and he also responded with something about nobody was mandated, forced to get a vaccine. Now that clip has gone around the internet over the weekend with all sorts of people calling him a liar, including Avi Yemeni has sent this around as well. You know, that guy who was convicted of abusing his wife, that guy, that upstanding citizen has been sending it around. So the question is what Winston Peters wants to do, and there's two questions. We'll have the response, and then I'll come back to you and give you the question you need to ask people who throw this horse shit at you. Here we go.
Winston Peters wants to compensate people who are mandated out of their jobs and vaccine injured. Does Labor support that?
I think Winston Peters seems to be abandoning the older New Zealand demographic that he used to be so keen to court. Older New Zealanders have record high rates of vaccination. They're amongst the highest in the world. And Winston Peters seems to be saying that they made the wrong decision in doing that.
Do you see any kind of value in looking into potential compensation for anyone, you know, disadvantaged through COVID, whether they were mandated out of their jobs or injured by the vaccination program?
There's a process for people who are injured in a medical procedure. There's already processes in place for dealing with that. In terms of the vaccine mandates.
Oh, someone's come in. The government's trying to censor us, Chewy.
It's the 5G.
It's the 5G getting us. Come on, Chewy.
Mandates.
Come on, Chippy.
In terms of the vaccine mandates.
Oh, good Lord.
You can do it, buddy.
I'm gonna have to refresh the whole thing, which means we might get ourselves a bloody advert. Let's see what happens. 3, 2.
The vaccine mandates. I acknowledge that it was a challenging time for people, but they ultimately made their own choices. There was no
compulsory vaccination. People made their own choices.
Is any of that going to be?
So that's it. That's all everyone said. So we just played again to make sure that I didn't cut too much of it off there. So let's go from there.
There's a process for people who are injured in a medical procedure. There's already processes in place for dealing with that. In terms of the vaccine mandates, I acknowledge that it was a challenging time for people, but they ultimately made their own choices. There was no compulsory vaccination. People made their own choices.
So there you go. Couldn't be clearer from the Prime Minister, and he is correct. Just in case you were wondering, he is correct. So what do you do? Look at that fat bastard. When you face someone who thinks that they were forced upon themselves a vaccination, you ask them a very simple question, right? This is Rachel, I forget her surname. Quite soon after this interview, she blocked me on all social medias, but she was a fairly high profile school teacher based in the sort of Timaru, Wamaru area, who this was before she had lost her job. But she was in stuff. She was in the, in the media, in the press, for not wanting to get vaccinated. So she was going to be one of the ones who lost her job, right? So she agreed to have a chat with me. We had an interesting chat. I appreciated her coming on, but we got to a point, and you can see that this is actually only a clip, and I'm only playing the end of the clip, right? Only the last couple of minutes. You can go back, and this was one of the very first kind of BHN things we did. You can see the background's different. There's about another 80 kilos of weight on this person, and the cap's different. But I ask her one question, right? And this is it. And this is all you need to do when you're talking to someone who says that. Here we go. Let me ask you something. When are you getting your injection? That's the question.
I won't be.
Why not?
Because I think it's going to be too dangerous.
Yeah, you're choosing not to.
I'm not choosing to do. I'm having to give up a lot of what I love for.
I agree. No, look, I agree. No, you don't need to sell me on how difficult the choice is. But the answer to the question, why aren't you getting it, is because you're choosing not to. That's accurate. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're making a choice. So we all have a choice.
Yeah, but it's a choice under duress.
Yeah. You kind of, in case you missed it, you kind of missed it. There's someone off camera who said to her, under duress. And I agree. It is a choice under duress.
Yep.
But it's still a choice.
I've had some very robust discussions with my partner over this as well. It is. You are asking people to make a tough choice, but not every choice is easy. And for me, it wasn't much of a choice because I believe in vaccinations, and I listened to people that know a lot about this stuff, and the people that we had on the show and that sort of stuff. And that's fine. I have trust in those organizations and structures and authority figures and that sort of thing. Not everybody does. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. But you still had a choice.
Yeah.
It might have been, how am I going to make the mortgage payments? Am I going to find a new job?
Me and Chewy went on a date on Friday, didn't we, Chewy? We had some romantic time together. We went and drove an electric vehicle. First time I'd ever driven one, and holy shit, I'm in love. Coercion is how any sort of law or rule gets put in place. Now, that's the outcomes for not participating in the vaccine program when it was in place were horrific. I'm not undermining it, and I've actually never mocked anyone about that. Like, I've never been mean and gone, fuck you idiots. That's not what we've done here. I'm like, I get it. It was really, really hard, and you made a really, really hard choice, but you made a choice based on your ideology. Lots of us who have various ideologies sometimes have to make really hard choices. Sometimes we make easy choices, but there's still a coercive factor. So we were going down the southern motorway in Dunedin in this, what was it, Chewy? What was the car?
A Hyundai Ioniq.
And I put my foot down, and all of a sudden I was doing 120. And it didn't feel like it was moving because there was no noise. And I was like, holy shit, and why did I slow down? I slowed down because I didn't want to get a ticket, and I didn't want to get that doubled by taking it back. There was a coercive reason to follow the rules. Every rule, especially put in place by government, has a coercive nature to it. I'm not playing it down. Paying $150 for a ticket is very different from losing your job. It's not equal coerciveness. It's not equal, but there is a coercive nature to law in New Zealand. but it still ends up meaning you've made a choice. There is no, and the reason is the start of that conversation that I just played you 30 seconds of was this. If you can do the opposite thing, then it's a choice. Because if it was a forced thing, you couldn't say no to it. So the question to ask people who put that out there and kind of talk a lot about, I was forced or it's forced or I lost my job because I refused to take that forced one, is like, well, when did you get your vaccine? And if they say I didn't, the answer is, well, because you chose not to. And to be honest, there's actually no argument from that other than what her coach said to her off air, which was like, but it was coerced. Yes, it was a coerced choice, but you could have said no. And I'm going to say one more thing, but anything else you want to mention to that?
Do you, when we're talking about coercion and stuff like that, do you know what my biggest beef with the people that didn't want the vaccine? I won't go as far as saying I was fine, but I could understand with people going, hey, look, there's not enough information out there for me to be comfortable taking this vaccine.
Yeah.
My sister had a very similar sort of argument with that, where she had some health issues and she was like, I don't know how this is going to interact with everything else that I'm dealing with. And I went, fair enough.
Yeah.
But she went, but I'm also a nurse, so I have a responsibility. My problem was the people that go, I don't want the vaccination, but I also don't want to change a single other aspect of my life at all.
Yeah.
I don't want to wear a mask. I still want to go to the movies. I want to go to the swimming pool. I want to do all of these other things. And it was just like, okay, you just don't want to fucking do anything.
Yeah.
And that's where I went, you know what? You asshole. You're coming into my workplace, into my personal space, and you haven't done a damn thing, and you could make me sick, and you could make someone in my life sick, very sick. Like,
my main feeling. Issue. So my main issue actually was nothing to do with people who didn't want to get vaccinated. Oops, there goes the camera. I'll be back in a sec. It was to do with the instigators, the people giving them bad information. The reason that teacher lost her job, had to stop working, was because of the bad information she had gotten. So I honestly, even though I don't want this to make it feel like I'm being lighthearted, but I actually honestly felt empathy for those people because they've got bad information. Yeah. We got told when we got vaccinated that everyone who got vaccinated would be dead by the end of last year. And so that's the reason people didn't get vaccinated. Well, that I'm doing pretty good. I've outlived that. It's just, I honestly, and I'll be honest, and there's people giving silly examples in the chat now about robbing someone. If a robber said, "Give me your money or I'll stab you," that's a choice. It is. It's a horrible choice. If you've seen the movie Dangerous Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer, she talks to these bunch of young kids in a classroom and she goes, "There's no victims in my classroom." She screams it. And one of the kids that's from a central city American situation stands up and goes, "Well, so, if someone was holding a gun to my head," and Michelle said, "Well, you've got the choice to go quietly. You've got the choice to scream. There's always choices. There's always choices. Not saying it's easy, not saying it makes it okay. I feel for you. I don't know what's happening with my camera. I apologize. I feel for you having to make those choices, but there is choices in this situation. And you cannot actually argue that you didn't make a choice not to get vaccinated or else you'd be vaccinated. It's finished. Now, the last thing I want to say on this, Chewy, is, and I'm going to play one more clip. The other thing that's really interesting about this is that I'm just going to put the camera over here like this, and then at least when I go to rainbow bars, it'll be a bit smaller. The other thing is, like, I listened a few times to that this reality check radio, whatever it's called. One of the things that's really interesting about the community that started around this, the Chantal Bakers of the world, the disinformation dozen, those people, is they're still talking about it. They're still talking about it like it's current today. They're still talking about mandates. They're still talking about all these things like it's happening today. And I like I heard someone talking in America about how the rest of the world has moved on. The people who drove this anti-vax message are still trying to drive it, even though the rest of the world's moved on. There was a hot spot for a while where they got a big audience around them because people were listening. And now actually it's really got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller into a really niche group of conspiracy theorists. And unfortunately and sadly, this clip I'm going to show you now is what it ends up being. This gentleman's name is Brendan Pascoe.
Oh, this guy. Yeah,
he is the former owner of Lone Star New Lynn, and he said his business was forced to shut because he didn't take an injection. Now, he says something in this clip where he says, Lone Star took my house off me. Now, I don't know whether that means he had a business and it failed, so he lost his house, or he had a contractual agreement to pay Lone Star something, and because he couldn't do it, because he didn't get vaccinated, so his business couldn't open, that he lost his house. I don't know, but in general, I feel empathy for this guy, but I also feel really angry for the disinformation dozen in their ilk who have caused this person to get information that's bad info. Remember, conspiracy theorists are wrong every time. We've done it with Chantal Baker. We've proven everything she said to be wrong. We've shown her research to be misquoted. It's wrong. And this is the outworking of it. People like this got sucked in. Even if the disinformation dozen were genuine, they got sucked into the message, they lost businesses, they quit jobs, and I feel sad for them, but this is the rage that's left in these people, and they're aiming it at the Labour government when I would be aiming it at the disinformation dozen and the people who have given them bad information, if only they could see. Have a look. Why I fixed my camera.
How dare you! You took my home, you took my business! Because I didn't take an injection. How fair is that? Now you want our votes? Screw you, Chris Hipkins. Treason. Treason.
That's more than brainworms.
My home and my business gone because I didn't take an injection. How fair is that? Lone Star took my home and my business because I didn't comply to these rules. Where is he? How can you calm down, mate? I've got no house, I've got no business. Everything was taken away from me. Calm down. All my staff lost their jobs.
So that's the other thing you're talking about. I'm not that particularly happy about the article. It talks about him lunging. He doesn't really. I mean, I think it's a little bit of that's the lunge there. It's a little bit of an overreaction. I feel empathy for him, but the other thing, like you've just said, Chewy, is who they impact. Him getting bad information, choosing not to get vaccinated, cost his workers their jobs. Now, whether that's fair or not fair, right or wrong, that was the rules of the time, and it's, you had a choice, and your choice cost you your business and your workers, which is so horrible to say out loud and so easy to say so quickly, but it's so difficult. But in the end. Conversation, debate, conversation, debate, all the way down to the end, it begins with a choice. Chewy.
Yeah. Now, this guy's been prominent in the anti-vaxxer movement and anti-co-governance. He's hosted these events. He's hosted Counterspin at this former Lone Star location. So he still definitely has access to it. He's still... I don't know what he's talking about. The thing was, when he started breaching the COVID restrictions and that sort of thing, people were, of course, going to Lone Star and going, hey, did you know one of your locations is doing this? And they've obviously approached him and gone, okay, man, like you can't be associating your nonsense with our business. So we're yanking the franchise.
Yeah.
I saw that at one of these events that he hosted, he was still serving alcohol without a liquor license. And he was going down the sovereign citizens sort of stuff of like, I don't need a license to sell alcohol. The man's got it bad.
But he's been taught it from somewhere. Like like people in cults get dragged into the cults at some point they may become the leaders of the cults, and then they have more responsibility. But at some point, they've been sucked into that cult by someone or something.
It's like a multi-level marketing thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, and maybe there's a lockdown, maybe you're all online and you'll just, you know, you might have had some, you know, maybe you just started out as like, oh, look, I don't like the left, I don't like Labor, that sort of thing. And now they've done this, and now I'm on a forum full of people that don't like Labor, and it's getting more and more and more.
Yeah.
And now I somehow think you know, YouTube and Facebook are stopping me finding out about this. So I'm going to go where that information is. And now I'm on Telegram, and now I'm in a massive echo chamber, and I'm just getting, you know, yes, I'm here for the anti-vax stuff because I'm not happy. But then there's people talking about Trump, and or maybe it started with Trump, you know. And now we're talking about sovereign citizen, and now we're talking about anti-co-governance, and now we're really an anti-government operator, and you feel like you're leading people, but you're being led as well.
Yeah,
but yeah, man, I feel for that guy. He's got just the most visible case of brainworms.
Look, I've been involved with getting people out of cults and understanding cults, and I mean religious cults, right? So I know quite a bit about, you know, love bombing and what happens is, and his community becomes 100% what he was talking about there. And then what happens is what you go is, well, like everyone says the same thing, you know, because it's his ecosystem that's all saying the same thing. And it just goes further and further. And then your friends become this. And we know about this, which has always been something I've pushed back against. But, you know, the anti-vaxxers family will push them away because they're anti-vaxxers. But then all they've got is turning to the other anti-vaxxers, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's, if you just think about like a religious cult, it's easier to have empathy. I said this the other day on the show, and it sounds really, really arrogant. And I know it sounds arrogant, but sometimes I like to treat everyone like they're broken. And if you treat everyone like they're broken, you come up against someone who does something to you or says something. If you think, what's happened to him today? He's had a bad day. Maybe he had a fight with his missus last night. Maybe he's a bit depressed. Maybe he's a bit anxious. You know, he's a bit broken. It's easier for you to kind of go, I mean, it sounds patronizing because I know not everyone is broken, but it's a mindset I do sometimes because it enables empathy in people. I look at that guy and I think, I mean, let's be honest. The first thing you kind of go, whoa, Trumpian, whoa, QAnon. But then you kind of go, how the fuck did you get there, bro? How did you get there? What led to this, that led to this, that led to this, that led to this, that led to you breaking all these rules, that led to you losing your business, that led to you losing your job, like losing your house. And there's a path. And because remember, there's also all those other people who were anti-vaxxers, and there's many stories about them who died, right, wishing they had taken the vaccine.
Yeah.
There's stories of families talking about their elderly parents saying on their deathbeds, I was wrong, I wish I had taken the vaccine. So, you know,
stuff was heartbreaking, man.
And those deaths are on the people's hands. Those deaths are on the hands and heads of the people who sowed the dis and misinformation. It's as simple as that. And I wouldn't invite this guy on for a chat, Rowan. I know you've got that. I just wouldn't do it. It's not, there wouldn't be any, you know what I say to people? Are you prepared to change your mind? And if they say no, I typically go, well, thanks. I'm not looking for an argument. His mind cannot be changed by a conversation with me. I hope his friends and family get around him. Same with everybody who's in whatever kind of cult. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, listen, it's coming up 10 to 11 and we haven't even started the show yet. 10 to 10.
240-minute hour.
Okay, so what we're going to say super quick. First thing we're going to say super quick is thank you very much to Michael and Emma, who have made themselves an order this evening. What has Michael got? Michael's got a If the Left Vote green t-shirt with white print. And Emma has got a BHN hoodie, a black BHN hoodie, both of them getting free delivery because they ordered during the show. If you would like free delivery, you only get free delivery promo codes active during the show. And tonight's promo code for free delivery is Pat in the Hat.
That's a good promo code.
You like that one? Pat in the Hat?
You've done well on the promo codes just generally.
I think about it. I also like when I was a kid, I used to go Pat Man. But I don't know how to do the I think that would be too difficult for people to get all the dinners. So maybe one night. All right, team. Fuck me, what are we talking about? Let's do this one. Oh, I want to talk about this story so bad. Let's do this one super quick. And Chewy, don't say anything. Hey, okay. So Labor announced Labor announced a new policy over the weekend, free dental for under 30s. Right, moving on. Done that. Let's now have a look at the National Party kicking off their...
Can I just say one comment before we do that? Thank fuck nobody over 30 has teeth.
Yeah, it's good.
It's literally the perfect policy.
And the other thing is, seeing you said one thing, I'll say one thing as well. We talked last week about we will vote for you if you give us a reason to vote for you. And what I want to see is meaningful change. Will that policy bring anyone over to vote for Labor? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, is that going to go someone who's sitting on the edge of national Labor go, oh, you know what? Dental for the under 30s once a year. Yep, you get my tick. Now, I'm not saying it's bad policy. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's not going to make a significant, meaningful change. But it is something that people can vote for. It's something to hang their hat on. Look, which is more than what National did. Segue, because in the weekend they had their conference and they announced 0 policies in their conference. Chewy.
With a postcard, or a pledge card, as they call it, launched its campaign.
Awesome.
National launched its campaign with a postcard, or a pledge card, as they call it. 8 pledges about policies it's already announced.
The bedrock commitments of a government that I
Not a single policy.
A campaign launch has a cracking centrepiece policy to go alongside it, like Labor's free dental care. But Luxem's already announced they're on 40 policies, leaving him this to wave around instead. Are you out of ideas?
Absolutely not out of ideas.
No new moves, but at least we've got a clear run at saying his piece.
Because we will get New Zealand, what?
Back under the tracks.
His opponents launched
All right.
yesterday, infiltrated by the Freedom Lot. Today, a trip to the markets became a hectic, heckling nightmare.
Screw you, Chris Hipkins. Treason. Treason.
Unhinged.
There were a lot out today. Brian Tamaki and his so-called Freedom followers moved on the Nats launch, though didn't manage to breach the building.
Is your plan to disrupt basically every political event?
Well, it's fun.
No, I've got no time for that at all.
Nah, not disrupting democracy. I'm bringing democracy back again.
I just think that
I thought he was supposed to start bringing sexy back. Isn't that the line? I think it's the line.
That's what I assume from the hair gel and the shades.
Yeah, maybe.
a nuisance for every New Zealander.
These two want a drag race.
Look beyond the smoke and mirrors and you'll see that most New Zealanders will end up worse off, and the country as a whole will end up worse off under National's plans.
National can take 41 days of attacks, but this country can't
Doesn't
take
sound
3
like it.
more years of the same old politics and the same failed policies.
We're going to have different
There's
failed
not that
policies.
Waving goodbye to campaigns of kindness, this is a bare knuckle fight. Only one of them can win.
Right. That's what we're going to watch for that. So they did announce some policy today. To be really honest with you, I didn't see it. I'll have a look at that tonight and go into it tomorrow maybe. But really interesting that often with a policy, with a campaign launch, you're also going, hey, here's our grandstand big idea, and they didn't have any. I was wondering as well about the pledge card, the promises that are on that. Is that therefore a written contract? Like, I did think about this literally. What happens if they get in and they don't fulfill the promises? Like, what's the recourse for that is what I'd like to know, if anything.
The recourse for that is waiting another 4 years to fucking get rid of them. Because this seems to be what they're tracking for, right? Is here's our policy. Oh, shit, everybody's tearing it apart. Well, we're still going on the vibe of the thing that people want Labor out. So we're not going to do anything about that. And then we'll get in. We'll just spend 4 years blaming Labor while we can't get across the line. Speaking
of they're tearing it apart, let's get to the cornerstone story of the night, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Q&A with Nicola Willis. Now, I have quite a bit of footage here. I understand that if we run a bit late tonight, you might want to pick up on this tomorrow. If you do, it will definitely be a clip at some stage during the day. But it's worth watching the whole interview. Jack Tame holds politicians' feet to the fire like no other interviewer in New Zealand does at the moment. And I wonder, because it is a face-to-face situation, not an over-the-phone to RNZ or News Talk ZB or whatever, he can actually literally say stop, and they kind of have to stop. And he does it quite a bit. So let's have a look at this to start with. And I've got several clips, right? I'll look through, and if it gets too long, maybe I'll cut one out. But this, people have seen it. Guru's already saying this was roadkill. He asks her about what is inflation, because I'll let the master do it. What is inflation is the first conversation.
Would you agree that introducing new money into an economy without increasing the supply of goods would be inflationary?
It depends how you do it.
If you introduce new money from outside an economy into an economy without increasing the supply of goods, that's a simple equation.
So I think what you're
Would that be
asking me
inflationary?
about is the foreign buyers tax, which we're proposing to put on. And our view on that tax is that it will have a couple of impacts. One is it will encourage more people to come to New Zealand and invest in our businesses, productive growth, entrepreneurs who want some capital to innovate with. The other effect that it will have is it will bring some revenue into New Zealand that will help fund our tax reduction plan.
Right.
Now, you have to look at our tax reduction plan as a whole,
I
because
have.
in its first year,
I have.
you will be aware it saves more money than it spends.
So $740 million in new money you are essentially introducing to the economy through that foreign buyers ban or the tax on foreign buyers. That is money that is coming from outside of our economy without increasing the supply of goods within our economy, which is, by its definition, inflationary.
Well, at the same time as we're doing that, we're reprioritising money away from wasteful backroom bureaucracy. We're also
If you haven't seen this, people, you will be dumbfounded as to what her suggestion is to make it not inflationary. Like you'll be dumbfounded. This is the person who wants to be our finance minister.
ensuring that money that's currently being spent on contractors
No, this
and
is new
consultants.
money, though. This is no different to if the government just decided to borrow more. It has exactly the same inflationary impact. But we're talking about introducing new money to an otherwise confined economy. This is inflationary.
Well, the effects of that could be a couple of fold.
Could be.
One, you may see that some of that money ends up being used by New Zealanders to save more.
Could be
to reduce
savings.
their debt by paying off their mortgages faster, in which case it's not going to go straight into cycle in the economy.
Right.
The
They
second
may
effect-
choose to save.
They may choose
They may
to
also
pay their
choose to
mortgages
spend.
off
I mean,
faster.
they may also choose to spend, though, right?
But
On
if
their
they choose to
groceries.
save, that will mean that that money is not in
so they could,
circulation
if
in the
New
economy.
Zealanders all choose not to spend the
On
money,
their
then it won't be
rent.
inflationary.
The second thing that could happen, Jack,
That's the theory, though, right?
yes, if they choose
Right,
to
Yes.
save,
So if every New Zealander saves the new money, it won't be inflationary. So Jack Tame says it's inflationary, isn't it? And the answer she's actually given is, well, if every single person who gets a tax cut saves every single cent of it, then it won't be inflationary, Chewy. That's the answer from our potentially next finance minister.
So just magic then.
Yeah.
Are we going with magic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good God.
All right.
But
the next
people
one.
will still vote for her because they like blue and they don't like red.
How about they're getting into the housing market? And this is the biggest clip we're going to watch, right? I've got like several clips, but most of them are only kind of 30 seconds to 2 minutes. This one's a bit longer, so we'll cut in and out of it. How do you get to your $740 million tax number from allowing foreign buyers to purchase? So how did you get there? How did you make the modeling? Really important. So this is this is Jack delving into how did you come up with that number? Tell us about the modeling.
So what we did was we looked at house purchases prior to the foreign buyer ban being brought in, and we looked at the pattern of purchases. Then we scrolled forward and we thought, well, given house prices have now gone up, given the pattern of where those homes were bought in the past, i.e. they tend to be bought in those areas with luxury homes, you know, the Coromandel, the Bay of Islands, Queenstown.
Nice homes.
And given
Just think about that though. What she's talking about, think about New Zealanders she's talking about, the people who buy a second home in Coromandel, Queenstown, Bay of Islands. So that's the market. This is the National Party's market. People who can afford to buy a second home in Coromandel. And for those of you who are in the South Island who don't know, that's about an hour and a half southeast of Auckland. Whitianga, Whangamata, lots of very, very wealthy Aucklanders go there. Obviously Bay of Islands, top of the North Island, the Winterless North, and Queenstown down here, same house price average as Auckland does. So this is what this policy is targeting, is that people. And we've often talked about who is the party of the people. It's certainly not the ones that can afford to buy a second house in a place like Queenstown, where the average house price is over $1 million. Just saying.
The luxury type of homes and the prices they will be paying, and the effect that will be had once you bring off a ban at the same time as you're getting rid of the effective capital gains tax in the form of the bright line test. What sort of pattern of purchase can we expect, and what revenue can we expect? And we're comfortable that our assumptions are cautious.
Right.
We had them checked by an external advisor who agrees with us that they are reasonable assumptions, and we're confident in our costings.
Okay, so if you have that big model, that grand model,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
you still get two numbers at the end, right? A median house price and a total number of house sales.
He's very good, Jack Tame.
So what are those numbers?
And those numbers will vary depending on what exactly happens.
Well, no, to get $740 million, you need to have a median price, an average house price, and a total number of houses.
Yes, that's right.
So what is it?
Well, those numbers will vary, but we have an estimate in our model for those numbers.
And so what is the estimate in your model?
The estimate in our model is that the average price will be more than $2 million, and that we will sell fewer than 2,000 homes. I want to just focus in there.
No.
She tried to keep going.
The average price is going to be $2 million.
More than
$2 million. So what is the average price going to be?
It's going to be more than $2 million.
What is the average price going to be?
Well, it will depend on which homes sell, and real estate agents are saying...
It's not how averages work. Sorry, Nicola, that's not how averages work.
Oh my God!
Averages work by the number of houses sold divided, the total price for all the houses sold divided by the number of houses that are sold. That's how the average works. It doesn't depend on anything else. She does give out a number, and one has to wonder why she struggled so long to get to the number rather than saying it straight away. Because she said 4 or 5 times, it's variable, and then she gives a number.
This is why we have an average. So what is the median price across all of those homes you're expecting to sell? What is the median price, the average price?
It will depend on exactly what happens, but
Nicola,
it will be about two.
Do you want to be the finance minister?
I do.
You have to give us the average. It doesn't change. The average doesn't change.
The average in
According to
the
your
average
model,
in
what
our
is the
model
average?
in its first year is $2.9 million. But
So that was either made up on the spot, and I don't think so, but that was either made up on the spot, or she didn't want to give it out because she knew what it was, and she spent 4, 5, 6 attempts not answering it. Why?
She also said, okay, technically correct, more than $2 million.
Yeah.
But $2.9 million, who says that's more than $2 million? Why wouldn't you say just under 3?
Because now what happens is now we've got that number, we can do the numbers, and I have.
Point is a really good one, Jack, and I want you to listen to it.
No. I want to dig into these numbers, and then we'll give you an opportunity to do that. I'll make sure you have an opportunity. So $2.9 million. Okay. So how many houses will you need to sell at $2.9 million?
Fewer than 2,000.
Fewer than 2,000.
That's right.
How many houses?
Technically, it's 1,725. I've done the numbers. It's 1,725 houses, but it's not just that sell below. That sell for more than $2 million. Remember, it's 1,725 houses averaging $2.9 million that sell to the countries that are allowed to pay tax on it because of our tax treaties. Now, previously, like when foreign buyers were allowed to purchase, they made up 3% of the total purchases. So if 3% of the total purchases are still going to be foreign house buyers, that actually means about 60,000 houses have to be sold in total to get to 1,725 $2.9 million houses. But there's going to be more than that because not all the people buying those $2.9 million houses are going to pay tax on that. Because if you're from China, you have a tax treaty and you're not going to be paying tax on that because you don't have to legally. And it goes round and round and round, and the numbers get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And you can just see how it doesn't stack up. But we'll let Jack keep going.
Was sold to foreign buyers in 2018.
My point that I was trying to make earlier, and I think it's really important your listeners hear it, is this. You cannot compare what's going to happen exactly in our market today with 2018 or even with now, because two big changes.
This is actually fair, but that means their projections are based on nothing. Because if you don't compare it to something, then it's just made up numbers. But it's fair to say you can't compare it to these 2 times. That's actually fair, but that means we're guessing. Because if you have no data to compare it to make your projections, then you're just making stuff up. Because you have to have some reason to make this projection other than going, well, this is how much we need, so let's just say it's this much. Because that's the only other way you can do it, Chewy.
Pat, you're forgetting an important thing when it comes to National Party policy. babes. It's the vibe.
Don't call me babes. That was so
Yeah,
right. I know we
it's
went
the
for a drive in a
vibes,
car together.
babe. It's just
keep-
the vibes.
Well,
Don't
let's give her a
harsh the
chance.
vibes
Let's
with
give her a chance
numbers.
to share the vibe.
Happened. The first is that Labor has introduced a bright line test, which
Sure.
means that many people
This
who
is
own a
fair,
second property, in
but it means
places
how do
like
you
Queenstown
project,
or the
right?
Coromandel,
The bright line
have
test
been put off
has been put in.
selling their
Absolutely, that's
So that
fair.
has potentially depressed
But that
the
means you've
market
got no way to project.
The second thing that's happened is that house prices have increased significantly.
Sure, again, both of those things are fair. So what are your projections based on? Maybe we'd like to see your numbers, which Jax gets into at some stage.
Purchase is going to recover as soon as you lift that ban.
I'm just doing the maths, okay? So in 2018, before the foreign buyer ban was lifted, how many purchases, as a percentage of overall purchases in New Zealand, did foreign buyers purchase?
I don't have that number right
Okay,
now.
I do. It's 3%, right? So if the average price for houses that you're going to sell is going to be 2.9, I've rounded up to $3 million, right?
Oh,
So if the average price is $3 million, even though in 2018 they were just 3% of buyers, they would have to represent 28% of buyers.
Well,
in that top tier. So
what,
no.
Jack.
The point is that for your numbers to work, you have to increase the number of foreign buyers almost
That
tenfold
face is like,
from
oh,
2018
fuck.
before that ban was lifted. That's fantastical.
No, Jack, that is
I
not the
hate
case.
you,
What
Jack.
actually needs to
Shut
happen is
Do you know the thing I like about what Jack said? The word fantastical sounds like it's got testicle at the end of it. So I'm mature.
that when we lift the ban, we will see foreign buyers entering the market. We will see probably much
We don't
more
know that. This is made up.
in that part of the market.
We
in
have no
that
data
luxury
because we're
end of the
ignoring the
market.
data.
The next thing that will happen is that it won't just be houses
We
selling
don't
at
know
that price
this.
point. There will also be houses
Oh.
selling at much higher price points. We're talking
So what she just said, houses selling at much higher price points, that's called a softball because Jack's ready for that and he's about to knock that ball out of the park.
$10 million homes.
Okay, so what was the most
$20 million
expensive?
homes.
$20 million home. So what was the most expensive
Well,
house
this
sold
is
in New
the-
Zealand last year?
This is the point.
No,
the
no.
the
What
market
was the most
last year,
expensive house?
I'm not going to compare the market last year with a market that doesn't
Because
have
it
a
makes
foreign
our
buyer
numbers look
First part
bad.
of 2022 was absolutely gangbusters. So what was the
But
most
the other
expensive
thing
house
that's-
sold in New Zealand last
The
year?
other thing that's important to remember is that last year there was a bright line test applied over a 10-year period, which meant that anyone who had bought their house in the past couple of years knew that if they then sold it, they would have to pay a full capital gains tax on it. So it's not fair
Okay.
to look at that
But you're
market
talking
and
about
say it's
$20 million
indicative of
houses,
what's going
right?
to happen going forward.
You're talking about $20 million houses,
In some
right?
cases, yes.
Okay, well, good news. I've got a photo here of a $20 million house. That was the most expensive house sold in New Zealand last year. Paratai Drive in Bemuera.
So one.
And just check out the interior. Lovely.
One
unspoiled
$20
views of
million
the
house
Hauraki
last year.
So that
Why
was the
don't
most
rich people
expensive house
have
sold in New
taste?
Zealand last
That
year.
is fucking
$20
ugly.
million that cost. If you sold 50 mansions for $20 million, 50 of those, okay? So not one like we did last year. If you sold 50 of those, and then you got your $10 million mansions as well, and you sold 50 of those, you would still be more than $500 million short of your projection.
But that's
So here's something else because I did this on Twitter with someone today. Someone said, but what if they were $10 million mansions? So I did the numbers. If you had 10, they need $5 billion of sales. They need $5 billion of sales because 15% of $5 billion is 750 million. So they need $5 billion worth of sales a year to hit their target to foreign nationals who aren't part of tax treaties. If they were $10 million houses, you need to sell 500 of them a year. Right now, as we speak, Chewy, on Trade Me, there are 26 houses listed for either $10 million or more. 26. That means all of those houses have to sell in about the next 10 days. And then for every other 10 days subsequent afterwards, they need to sell another 26 of them. That's how you get to their number based around that $10 million mark, which they're talking about now. Every 10 days, you need to sell about 25 $10 million houses. Right now, there's only 26 of those in the country, but we need 500 of them to be sold a year if they averaged $10 million a year, let alone 2.9. So this is their problem. Their numbers aren't stacking up.
It's just dreams. Like this is.
I'm sorry to
and they
give you
get this reputation of the party of, we're the only party that makes sound financial decisions. Labour's terrible at it. The Greens can't do it at all. Where is this reputation come from? They're terrible at it.
Yeah.
They're absolutely terrible at it. Why would you encourage foreign investment into a non-productive asset and then build a house of cards on top of it?
This clip's got 1 minute to go. Let's get to the end of this one clip because this is the biggest part of the conversation.
Over a 4-year period.
No, that's for 1 year. That's for 1 year. We can do the maths right now if you want to do them.
Jack.
No. This is. I mean,
we believe that they're best, and we are very confident in our costings because we think that there will be hundreds of transactions. We think that there will
thousands.
be people
you need
want to
thousands.
purchase these
1725.
We believe that we will get the tax revenue from.
Need thousands. She said hundreds. She said the average is $2.9 million. That's 1725 a year, averaging 2.9 million times 725 gets you to 5 billion. She said the average was 2.9. That means you have to have 1,725 sales a year because 1,725 times 2.9, which is the average, gets you to 5 billion. So not hundreds, over 1,000, nearly 2,000.
And we think that our estimates are cautious, they're conservative, they're based on the pattern of purchases that have happened previously, the pattern of purchases that have happened.
In the interest of transparency and economic credibility.
I'm going to start this again because I want to give it a build up. This is the most important thing any journalist will ask a National Party member, especially the people who are touting this tax cut. This is the most important 60 seconds of broadcasting you will hear this election cycle, asking about, can we see your numbers? Honestly, it's the most important thing. We all need to listen to it.
Purchases that have happened previously, the pattern of purchases that have happened.
In the interest of transparency and economic credibility, as the person who wants to be the next finance minister, will you commit to releasing your full model?
We have already released the basis of our costings.
The model, will you release the full model that gave you the costings, including that 2.9 median figure for the average house price you're going to sell to foreign buyers? Will you commit to releasing that model?
I don't think it's necessary because I've released my assumptions. I've made it clear that they've been
in the interest of
checked.
transparency and as a representative of the party that sells itself on its economic credentials, will you release that model?
I simply don't think it's necessary, Jack.
Wow.
That's the end of that clip, Chewie. Now, we do have some other shorter clips that I want to play, but you want to jump in with anything so far? That's pretty much the housing side of things done.
Yes, I do have something. Just give me 1 second here, Pat. I'm doing a very professional thing here. Bad for time.
I can just play a 40-second clip while you're waiting.
Everything dies.
I'll play a short clip while we're waiting for Chewie. So here's a short clip. This is a little bit about what about in the housing market, the pressure to make those $1.8 million houses. What happens to them? So we talked about this last week. If you've got a house worth $1.8 million and you're selling that to 20 New Zealanders, right? What happens now? Is there not an incentive to make it 2.01 million because then you've got 1 billion Chinese who can buy it rather than 50 New Zealanders who can buy it? What will that do to the housing market?
I mean, if we're to once again reflect on economic theory, there's even...
Oh, Chewie, you come in. Sorry, mate.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Chewie is having trouble. I will play this clip again. I'll keep going till we get Chewie back. So this is asking about the houses that are 1.8 million.
Every reason to think that if you were seeking to sell a house for $1.7 million, which would be like a 3-bedroom house in Mount Albert, Gucci, that you might be incentivized to increase the price so that you could attract foreign buyers, if indeed foreign buyers are able to purchase.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think that is going to highly depend on what foreign buyers want to buy. And what evidence tells us from the past when we didn't ban foreign buyers was that they tend to want to buy luxury properties, not typical family homes. They typically want to buy in areas that are particularly distinctive, whether that's the Bay of Islands, the Coromandel, Queenstown. And so we don't think that it's going to have a massive effect on properties under $2 million.
Okay, very, very important, right? Very, very important point. Unless they want to buy rental properties. At no point has anyone from National said they can buy one property over $2 million. At no point has that been said. So we must assume now that if you're coming from Australia or Canada or USA or UK or China or Japan or any of these places who have tax treaties, under National, those people can buy as many $2 million houses as they want with no tax take. So yes, the 3-bedroom house in Mount Albert, or the 4-bedroom house in Brooklyn, or the studio apartment in central Dunedin, that won't be worth $2 million. But you know what I'm saying, is now available for these international buyers to purchase if it hits 2.01 million and have as a rental property, as an investment. They might not want to buy it to live in it. They might want to go to Coromandel or Bay of Islands or Queenstown or whatever, but they might want to buy 10 of them at $2.01 million and rent them out as family homes to New Zealanders who can no longer buy them. So yeah, if people from China, from Canada, because that's one of the places, from USA can now buy properties over $2 million, they will want to buy family homes, maybe not for them to live in, but as an investment, shall we? Especially if they're paying no tax.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is a policy built for the real estate companies. Bailey's have designed a policy that'll get them some pretty fat commissions. But like, there's one comment I want to highlight here. I'm so confused why people do not want foreign investment. With 3 islands in the middle of nowhere in a recession, we need foreign investment. We're barely in a recession. We'll probably bounce out of that in the next quarter anyway. We're not against foreign investment. We're against foreign investment in an unproductive product. A house makes nothing. It produces nothing apart from returns for the buyer. Why can't we encourage foreign investment into our industry? Why do we have to import everything? You know, this is what's good for economy, not selling mansions to people who barely live here, for selling out citizenship to people like Peter Thiel to build a bunker outside of Wanaka. It's all nonsense. None of this is going to help. The figures don't make any sense at all. And it's just policy for rich people overseas rather than policies that will help the majority of New Zealanders. National don't give a fuck about you.
So this is really important to remember. The number of houses that need to sell per year are 1,725, bought by international buyers that do not live in China, Singapore, Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, India, Japan, Mexico, the UK, and USA. So they can't live in those countries because we have tax treaties. So from all the other countries, from all the other countries, 1,725. Now, remember, that also means all of those countries I've listed, they can come in and buy $2 million houses because there's no more foreign buyer ban. So they can still come and buy them. Those ones just weren't buying tax. Now, the last time foreign people could buy, well, international people could buy property here in New Zealand, the Chinese market made up 36% of purchases. Now, if that's still the case, that means of that 1,725, 600 of them are going to be bought by China. There's no money on those. So that's going to have to be bought by another country's citizens. And then what happens, Chewy, when those people, let's say in Germany, they register their business in London or in Canada or whatever, and then they do it through that company. Because I don't know who it was last week, but it might have been the guy from the CTU, Craig Rennie, said if you can afford $350,000 to pay tax and you can afford an accountant not to pay tax, that's part of the conversation as well. Russian oligarchs, says Steph. I'm going to play another couple of clips. I know we're going long, but I want to get through all these because they're really important. We're okay? Okay, so we are looking at the advice that they got. I've been talking to you about tax treaties. Now, they did get some advice from on tax treaties, and some of the advice they got does point them to being able to get I actually saw there's a story, which I haven't even looked at yet because I saw it as I was signing up, that China has fired a bit of a warning shot across New Zealand's government bow saying you will not be taxing our citizens national. That came out this evening. We'll have a look at that tomorrow. Did they get advice on tax treaties? There is some advice that said they'll be able to get around them, but there's also advice that say they can't. Really interesting part of this. Before they released their document, their taxing, do they get advice on tax treaties, which seems to be the sticking point at the moment?
We have subsequently talked to people about tax.
We have subsequently. Did you get that? We have subsequently. We'll keep going.
Treaties, because the view on tax treaties is that it does depend on whether or not the foreign buyer charge is seen as a tax or not, and it also depends on the country that you're dealing with. So in the case that David Parker desperately brought up during the week, we think he's
Desperately brought up showing what legislation was and the double tax treaty between China, the desperate thing that he showed, that stuff that's written into law, desperate.
completely wrong for two reasons. One, at the moment, Chinese buyers are totally banned from purchasing houses in New Zealand. And what we're creating is some conditions under which they could buy in certain cases if properties are worth more than 2 million.
But you'll tax them, right?
Yes, that's right. We'll make them pay a very significant charge at point of purchase for permission to buy a home. But the second thing is this. This week, the government introduced a bill which would have unilateral tax treatment of digital services. And they did that because countries do from time to time do that. And we reserve the right as New Zealand to do that in terms of our tax treatment. Many other countries around the world tax foreign property. There's no reason for foreign purchases of property, and there's no reason New Zealand shouldn't too.
Except for the non-discrimination provision that is present in many of our tax treaties with countries. So in our tax treaty with China, it says this: it's not possible for residents of China to be subject to any taxation which is more burdensome than the taxation of New Zealand. And
it's important to hear that again, because it says residents of China. Did you hear that? I'll play it again. It says residents of China.
Property. There's
Have a
no
listen.
reason for foreign purchases of property.
This
and
is
there's
what
no
the
reason New Zealand
legislation
shouldn't too.
says.
except for the non-discrimination provision that is present in many of our tax treaties with countries. So in our tax treaty with China, it says this: it's not possible for residents of China to be subject to any taxation
We'll come back to that.
which is more burdensome than the taxation of New Zealand. And there is a distinct difference between tax treaties and the FTAs, which you sought advice on when you were developing this policy. So we've been speaking with Professor Craig Elliff from Auckland University. He's a professor of taxation and the director of the New Zealand Centre for Law and Business, a former tax partner at KPMG and Chapman Tripp. And he has real concerns about the policy. This is what he says: about half of New Zealand's tax treaties have a non-discrimination clause, including Australia, Canada, China, Hong Kong, India, Japan, Mexico, the US, and the UK. That non-discrimination clause would mean you cannot introduce a foreign buyer's tax. I would expect a significant possibility of a challenge by the taxpayers, i.e. the foreign buyers. There would also be a significant...
When I heard that, I did wonder what the Taxpayers Union Association is going to be saying about this, Chewy. I wonder if they're going to get up and fight for Labor on this. I just wonder, the Taxpayers Union, the TPU, because they want to be overt and they want to make sure the correct tax is getting paid to the correct places. I'm sure they're going to get Labor's back, wouldn't you think? Maybe.
Just as an aside, every time I hear it abbreviated to TPU, I think of Toilet Paper University. Just how my brain works.
Very good.
Significant political and legal risk with our treaty partners. The treaty partners could terminate the double tax treaty or negate various parts of the agreement. There are many other political consequences, such as the termination of agreements like FTAs for such a serious breach of international law. Now, that's not just some guy. That is the director of the New Zealand Centre for Law and Business, a professor of taxation at Auckland University. What does he get wrong?
Well, there are other views which interpret those tax treaties differently. There's clear evidence that many of the countries he's listed already do these charges themselves.
Yeah, hang on. These countries do these charges themselves, but that doesn't mean that's not the same thing.
No.
That's like saying, well, Germany's got an autobahn and they can drive as fast as they want on that. So, we can drive as fast as we want. Just because they have the rules and they do it doesn't mean we can. We've got a contractual agreement that says we can't. Just because they do it with other countries doesn't necessarily mean that therefore we can.
And finally, and I think this is really important, let's get in the real world.
This is beautiful.
Do you really think that China...
So what she's about to say to us here, right? Let's get in the real world. She's going to say, but China, they're lovely people. Do we really think that the government's going to do anything about this? I mean, we're letting them buy houses now and just charging them some tax. That's a positive thing. She's selling the idea that China's going to be reasonable. That's what she says, Joey.
These charges themselves. And finally, and I think this is really important, let's get in the real world. Do you really think that China is going to have a diplomatic incident with New Zealand because we say, how we banned people from your country from buying houses altogether? Well, now we're going to let them, but the condition is they have to pay a charge. Actually, that's a step forward in terms of their rights with regard to New Zealand, not a step backwards. And so we are confident that this can be diplomatically managed.
Right. So you think this is going to require diplomatic management?
No, I do not think that this is going to trigger the kinds of legal disputes that your professor has referred to.
So she was saying, right, China's going to be reasonable about this. She's going to say, do you really think that China's going to care if we tax their million and billionaires tax when we're letting them buy property? That's what she just said, you know. Now,
if they do get shitty, we just won't sell them milk.
And
then nothing bad will ever happen.
One other thing, it's the same part of the second story. This is from Newshub. They went to Newshub went to the expert that National pointed them to. Right, National said, go and speak to our expert. He's over there. He will tell you what we're thinking. I want to play you this because this gives you more of an insight.
I have. After asking for that legal advice specifically around the tax treaties, National pointed me towards their own tax expert, Robin Oliver, who used to be the Deputy Commissioner at IRD. And without taking you down into the weeds of international taxation treaties, he says that it is possible to tax the citizens of those countries that we have those double tax agreements with, so long as that they're also not residents in New Zealand and paying tax here.
So we can't tax them unless they're residents here. Now, what did the law say? I replayed it and I repeated it, that you can't charge residents of China. Whereas the professor is saying if they're residents of New Zealand, we can charge them. Listen again.
To tax the citizens of those countries that we have those double tax agreements with, so long as that they're also not residents in New Zealand and paying tax here.
So if they're paying tax here, we will charge them. And if they're residents here, we can charge them. However, the law said you can't do this to residents of China. So there's a juxtaposition there, but there's still one more bit to come, Chewy, right? We heard that word subsequently from Nicola Willis. Subsequently, remember, that means after we released the policy.
But what Robin also told me was that he didn't speak to National until Friday, which is 2 days after they released their tax plan, and they were already getting heat for breaking these international treaties. This is starting to look like a bit of a mess that National is scrambling to get the evidence it should have had before releasing this tax policy. It looks like the government, which has been looks like the party which is gunning to be the government, has been caught off on the back foot and blindsided by these international tax treaties.
There you go. Chewy, there is actually more that I wanted to share, but I think I may do some. I wanted to talk a little bit about, Jack Tame also pulled her up on, they got lobbied by Sky City. And she confirms that. They spoke to Sky City about that taxation. He quizzed her on VPNs to get around the gambling situation. And also what happens if you don't reach your revenue model. And she basically gave a guarantee they would. And in fact, I've just covered off the last 3 clips, so we won't do it again. And my biggest concern about that
trust me, bro.
No, but if they guarantee it and they can't do it through taxation, then they'll do it through cuts. Because if they guarantee it, they have to do it. And if they're going to do it and they can't do it through taxation, then they'll do it through cuts.
That's always been the plan, Pat. Plan's working as planned. Plan the plan, work the plan. Plan. God, these guys are dangerous. They're dangerously cavalier. They're dangerously unprepared for this. They are not a serious contender. We have to stop thinking in binary terms it's got to be National or Labour.
And what we do have to do is do this for Jack Tame.
Jack Tame is a goddamn legend.
I mean, you could see a couple of times she was like, talk. Now on to the next up, and he was like, no, we're going to finish this one first. So, he does it to everybody. So this is not, I don't think it's partisan from his position. I've heard him and seen him interviewed. In fact, I've interviewed him twice. In fact, we should get him back on. And he basically, I don't think he quite says he hates them all, but he treats them all with equal disdain if they're, talking bullshit. And that's great. It's what we should have.
No, it's
especially
an
from
interview
that fourth estate.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when people talk about the fourth estate, this is what we mean, is that there's so much soundbite media. There's so much clips of we've got 2 minutes to talk about what Christopher Luxon's talking about or what Chibi's talking about, that sort of thing. You can't give context. That's why we're doing this. We're trying to put some of our context on it, right? because it's not served. You've got Q&A, and that's basically the only show in the country that's doing this on mainstream TV. And Jake does an amazing job. We've featured him so much, just eviscerating people, and that's what we want to see. I don't want the press release. I want to show me the meat.
We're going to wrap up the show because I think Shamabel Jacob actually kind of summarized it beautifully for us. And if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen this weekend. But after an interview about the numbers, this is a different program. This is TV3. That was TVNZ. This is what well-respected economist Shamabel Jacob had to say.
Shamabel, these numbers have started to unravel around this foreign buyers tax, haven't they?
Oh, I mean, those numbers are just bullshit, to be quite honest.
Just bullshit, to be quite honest.
The potential tax revenue from all the over $2 million properties would be $1 billion based on the last 12 months. So they're assuming that more than 70% of all $2 million plus properties are going to be sold to foreigners. It just doesn't make sense.
We tip our cap to you, sir, for being succinct and to the point. And with that, Chewy, I'm done for the night. But you're welcome to. Have you got anything else you want to throw in there?
I would like to make some sort of bet on an online casino of some sort. At one point, Shamabel's going to flip a table if this nonsense carries on. The man's on the edge.
Thank you for being with us tonight, team. Loved seeing you all out there. We've had people in the chat saying, this is amazing. The chat's going too fast, which means we're all here. Yeah, remember, I'm just putting this out there now, not for tonight. But if you ever want to share a comment and you want us to absolutely get to it, you have the option for super chats for when you come back over the next few days. Super chats obviously stay in our folder, and it means we can't miss it and we get to it. And we do actually, unless they were like controversial or defamatory or something, we always mention super chats. So just giving you a heads up that they're available for other nights as well. And also to remind you that, gosh, what do we got? About 2 minutes, maybe, that the code is still working for BHN Shop. .nz, bhnshop.nz. If you want to get on board and get some, if the left vote the left wins gear, or some straight BHN gear, and if you use the promo code before 10:30 p.m, which might be already done, but if it's not, pat in the hat. If it's not, then just wait till tomorrow night, come back at 9 o'clock, and you'll see the new code for tomorrow night. It's a different code every night, and you can get yourself some gear tomorrow night with free delivery, or just buy it whenever you want and pay the delivery. bhnshop.nz. This drop will be up until Thursday week, so you've got a couple of weeks to get this gear, and then it goes away. All right, Chewy, I think we're done. You want to
90-minute Monday?
Oh, Chewy said that. That's good.
He's a good bloke. He's got some incisive commentary in the chat.
Is there anything you want to throw out from the chat before we take off?
Oh, there was so much that I started, guys. I tried to keep up, and then there's just so much that we covered tonight. I see a lot of new names. We've had some good numbers tonight. So if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button.
Yeah, actually,
share it around and look for the clips tomorrow.
If it is your first time here and you don't know who the fuck we are or what we're doing, we are going to do some like election specials, debate specials, and they're not going to be at the regular time. So it's essential that you subscribe to what we're doing and probably ring the bell as well, so it tells you when we're going to be live. And then when we do them, we can actually have you join us on board for some of those other special live events as well. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, I saw us go up to 120 actually, 120 watching live, because remember that's probably just on YouTube. We're also on Facebook and Twitch and Twitter and places as well. And it might not sound like a lot of people, but I always think about this for us, and just so you guys who are part of our community can realize how this is going, is that we, we're 1/70th the size of the USA. We're doing a New Zealand news show for New Zealanders. We're not going to get a worldwide audience. We're not going to get massive numbers. But if it was the equivalent for an American audience doing an American show, that'd be like having 7,000 live people watching. So 120 people watching live is pretty fucking awesome, to be really, really blunt with you. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. We look forward to 200 of you watching us live tomorrow night, and then 300. And then I think we're aiming to get to 1 million a night watching us live. Isn't that what we're aiming for, Chewy?
Yeah, absolutely.
1 million
like per capita, which is the only way that New Zealand measures anything. The top of the leader tables. But
right,
yeah, share us around. Tell people about us. Do our bidding. That's what I'm going for. We were
Follow
going
us
to build
on
up
Twitter.
to that, but we're there
You
now.
follow us both on Twitter, actually, because I'll do some clips tomorrow of the show tonight, and I'll do a big long version of that Nicola Willis one, but I'll probably also do it in all the individual clips as well. So if you wanted to be particularly into the story about the housing stuff with Jack, we'll do that. You'll be able to do them all individually as well. All right, team, love you guys to bits. Come back tomorrow night, bring a friend. Until we see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow night, be safe, be well, and I think it's a big hooroo from me. Catch you later.
Cheers, fam.